Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really intense, visceral, and highly symbolic narrative of paralyzing grief and ultimate spiritual redemption. We're diving into a journey titled Love Story T&E, which literally takes us from the deepest, darkest pits of psychological terror straight into a heavenly ascension. So picture this. How does a totally sunny, peaceful fishing trip descend so rapidly into outright demonic spiritual warfare? Well, we're going to plunge directly into the chaotic world of our protagonist, Elisa, to see exactly how her trauma morphs into literal monsters right before our eyes. And more importantly, we'll see how she manages to fight her way out of it. Section 1. A Dream Turned Nightmare. Elisa's mind is this landscape of absolute extremes. One second, it's this serene, glowing memory of a fishing trip at a fell cabin with her partner, Toivo. The sun is shining, water drops are falling like pearls, and Toivo has just caught this beautiful reddish 3-kilo salmon. It's perfect, right? But then, in a flash, the scene just violently shatters. The sky instantly turns pitch black, the water transforms into this dark eye, and suddenly a rotting, whale-sized pike with 5 eyes on each side emerges from the deep, letting out this piercing falsetto scream from hell. And guys, it gets so much worse. The beast attacks Toivo with a spear literally made out of human thigh bones. It absolutely cements this horrifying shift from a clinical memory into just visceral, raw terror. Elisa is suddenly pulled under the icy, bubbling water, pierced by the saber-like teeth of the slimy pike. This isn't just a scary story. It's a profound, tangible representation of how grief can just drag you under in an instant. Section 2. The Reality of Grief. Snap! Just like that, Elisa wakes up to her psychiatrist, Dr. Peter, snapping his fingers. This grounds us right back into the real-world timeline of her heartbreaking loss. Toivo didn't actually die in a monster attack on a lake. He was worn out by cancer. He passed away exactly 1 year ago. And in the present day, Elisa is sitting in an armchair undergoing deep hypnosis therapy. Those monsters we just saw, they're the trauma of her loss manifesting during her sessions. There is a terrifying duality going on here. On the clinical side, Dr. Peter notes a recurring beast motif in her fears, like the pike, or previous visions she's had of werewolves, and he really believes they are on the verge of a psychological breakthrough. But for Elisa, it's a completely different reality. It's a terrifying spiritual intrusion. Right there in that dim therapy room, she hallucinates a tall man in a black tuxedo with a horribly distorted face, holding a black rose. So while the doctor sees a textbook breakthrough, she literally sees demons invading the room. Section 3. Descent into Paranoia. So she's leaving the hospital, and on the floor of her apartment building's flickering cage elevator, she spots something, a blue envelope and a golden key. These end up becoming physical anchors for her journey. The exact moment she touches that key, it instantly triggers this divine vision of a white horse and a shining rider with many crowns. Right in the midst of her deep depression, it's the sudden, jarring flash of hope and divine power. But that hope, it doesn't last. The second she gets inside her apartment, the darkness immediately closes back in, and the horrors relentlessly compound. A cockroach scurries in the hallway, terrifying howling echoes through the walls from the neighbor's apartment. An emergency TV broadcast warns of a black storm wall approaching the city, and when she actually looks out the window, the clouds are literally forming into skulls. In an absolute panic, she runs to the mirror only to see her own reflection vomiting cockroaches. And finally, she senses a hissing, dark-hooded creature with moist antennae standing right behind her. It's an incredibly claustrophobic, overwhelming escalation of panic. Section 4. Confronting the Demons. Out in a pitch-black, wet park, this psychological terror actually turns physical. She encounters these bony, hairy creatures swarming a tree, making it look almost like a giant, grotesque hand. And they're radiating this pulsating red light, a literal aura of fear. It's fascinating because in severe trauma or instances of sleep paralysis, the brain can actually manifest physical throbbing panic in response to emotional triggers. Here, that throbbing panic becomes a tangible, paralyzing red light. The grip of fear is quite literally trying to paralyze her completely. Right here is where the entire narrative pivots. Facing absolute, paralyzing terror, she wields her grandfather's old Bible. Huge blue flames shoot right out from the book, striking the tree and destroying the creatures completely, turning them into nothing but dark mush. And then, the book opens to a spot glowing with golden light, revealing this exact verse: "Perfect love casts out all fear." It is such a spectacular visual of faith and love neutralizing the paralysis of grief.
Section 5. The Pearl Gates.
Watch how this ascension builds step by step. First, Elisa steps into this quiet church, lit only by crashing thunder outside. Second, she opens that blue envelope she found in the elevator to find a welcome note to the Pearl Gate of Life. And third, the golden key in her hand suddenly brightens like a sun, illuminating the entire interior. She is walking straight out of a rotting, terrifying park, directly into blinding, divine light. Think back for a second to that hallucination in a therapy room, that nightmarish man in a dark tuxedo with a distorted face and a black rose. Now, look at the reunion. Waiting for her in the church is Toivo, but instead of darkness, he's wearing glowing clothes. He has a shining face completely full of life, and on his chest rests a vibrant red rose. That demonic hallucination has been completely replaced by divine restoration. She reaches out to him and realizes, I hugged Toivo and felt how my whole being brightened down to my soul. The very moment she embraces him, her paralyzing grief is entirely cleansed by a supernatural flash of lightning, transporting them away. All of this incredibly vivid imagery culminates in this ultimate ascension. They find themselves standing right before God's throne, with lightnings departing from it and a glowing emerald rainbow arched above. From there, they arrive at heaven's bright pearl gates, completely reunited with a massive crowd of loved ones who had previously passed away. The journey ends as they walk through the gates and hear a voice welcoming them as good servants into the Lord's brightness. I want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. If paralyzing grief is a descent into absolute darkness, how do we find our own golden key to ascend? While Elisa's journey through spiritual warfare and paranoia was absolutely terrifying, her ultimate reunion at the Pearl Gates shows the triumphant, eternal power of perfect love over fear. So what is the golden key you need to pick up in your own life to cast out the darkness? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating narrative with me today, and I'll see you in the next explainer.